Welcome to the Symphony of Realities podcast, boldly taking you where no podcast has gone before. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation as you settle into your X, Y, and Z coordinates within time and space. Here are your hosts, Christopher Anatra and Sean Bond.
Now we're back.
Good start. Yes. What'd you say?
I just said we're back. We're back. We're back with episode 8 of Symphony of Realities podcast, our first podcast of the year 2022, in the year of the tiger. So yeah, we did it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh man, it's been a while. We were gone a long time. It's interesting.
I feel like we've gone a long time.
All right.
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting podcast. We're going to talk about Kansas and a little bit about Arkansas and a little bit about the land of Oz. And at the end, we're going to venture into New York City, into the obelisk territory. So it's going to be a very interesting show. There's going to be a lot of very interesting things that we bring out from our adventures.
Absolutely. Been all around the block and here to tell our story. How's everyone been? Anyone in the chat? Say oh. Oh yeah. Okay. We got an oh yeah. Okay. Good.
All right. So let's begin. And we kind of have it organized with our slides here again. So for the months that we haven't made any videos, Sean, is there anything you'd want to bring people up to speed with about what's going on with you?
Sure. And then I'll ask the same. Been working a lot, besides traveling, making video products, bunch of video abilities all in one. So I don't have to keep saying the same thing over and over again, and can build up off of that and with greater new sessions and stuff. So if people want the basics of a lot of things, they can go to my site and go to the member section and get some of those abilities. Making cheap and also expensive, depending on how dramatic they are. Just got up some videos on empathic mastery, wholeness, traps, a bunch of things I got in the loop going forward after they're done editing. Eventually going to probably do stuff on the Calm Businessman site in products as well with Chris on abundance. So please put in the comments that you want to see more on abundance. There's a lot of every time we get into it, there's things that want to overwhelm us with distractions. So it takes quite a bit to get it out there. I know you guys need it. But yeah, just let us know if you want to see that.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to say that we use something called StreamYard when we put this presentation together. And StreamYard has been crashing on their end. So if anything happens during this presentation, we'll come right back up again. We'll start up as soon as we can. Just wanted to put that out of the way so people know. Yeah, and Sean, I've also been dragging you around. Going to like my birthday trip, which we're going to talk about, which was a lot of fun. I know that last time, what was the last birthday trip I dragged you on? Was Sri Lanka?
Yeah, that was good. That was so magical. My God, I recommend that so deeply. I don't know how many treehouse hotels there are in Sri Lanka, but whatever it was, go there. My God, it was amazing.
Yeah, and definitely hire like tours by local or a local guide to take you around, because that makes the whole experience even better. They take you to the best restaurants and the good places to stay. And yeah, it made the whole experience really magical. Definitely unforgettable, especially that portal that we went through. That was fun, that Stargate.
Yeah, we're still unlocking stuff from that. It's a lot of divinity stuff, so it's like overwhelming every time you go into it, and kind of does a bit of a mind blow. So
yeah,
there's emotions definitely after that. You remember crying on the car ride back?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, it was definitely the feeling that I had was that part of me at that time like didn't want to come back, because where I went and all the joy that was experienced and those people and or beings that I spent time with while I went through the Stargate and back again, you know, it was very, very touching. And I know my higher self definitely appreciated that.
Yeah, it's like visiting soul family that is really hard connected for a while, and then it's like, oh, you got to go back. No,
I don't want to. I want to stay longer. Exactly. So, well, we had a different type of portal experience too. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, I always seem to find portals and stargates for the birthday time, which is cool.
yeah, we got to keep doing that because it's like interconnected trade and commerce and expandedness. Because you can't, a lot of things are taken out of this realm, so it's like they got to be seeded from the seed vaults of other realms of what those realms have permeating in them and are strong. It's just like, oh yeah, this is just normal here, and that like are very good in support in some way, and then bring that here back to reflourish. It's like bringing a farm to Mars again or something kind of thing.
Okay, makes sense. Is there anything else you want to add, Sean, about what you've been up to over the last few months? Besides processing upgrades and just everything going on in the solar system, and
Oh my God, there's so much I couldn't cover it in the show. Writing so much down, as much as I can of what everything that's coming. Probably cover some of it in the show, but yeah, a lot of mastery abilities. I'll try to put make them into products and videos and stuff. Let me know in the comments if you guys feel open to the idea of like doing like a group meditation where we all like rise together really fast and strongly and upgrade in like a cheap kind of way so that everyone like grows, and then we form a collective and comments about it. Might be fun.
Yeah, definitely. And look at just the way the world is like changing, like almost like breaking down, you know, all the time. If it's not one thing, it's something else. And it's really interesting. It's the way I feel is that we've entered a different part of time and space, and time and space is very different, very much higher frequencies going on. And there's a lot of things that are, I would say, incompatible with the higher frequencies that they're trying their best to stay here, but I don't think there's any way for that kind of stuff to happen.
Yeah, like the different structures in the eventual goal to bring to full unity of all the cells of the body, all the cells that are finding themselves positive and generating a whole bunch of energy and awakening and growing, and people as above so below, all that have to separate from the things that are parasitic, cancerous or illness or all that as it quarantines itself. So like boundaries set up in the different polarities of light and dark and throughout all the systems, and they have to make those strong boundaries, and we're seeing those strong boundaries come up in every way throughout territories around the planet and different cultures, people, countries, the war word, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And things are changing so fast. Like first it was COVID, and now like COVID's not the big deal anymore. And now it's like, fear of World War III. And like what's going to come after that? And meanwhile, all this disclosure is coming out about things, and it is probably the most remarkable time in human history. Although, for some people it's scary, it is still the most remarkable time in human history to be alive. Like it seriously is.
Yeah, like truth deeply coming out, and a lot of the truth, especially that rise to the top that needs the most attention, is the scary stuff that puts people in fear. And since they're already overwhelmed with fear of the media and stuff, unapologetically dumping it on everyone, people will be overloaded, but eventually they'll like kind of get numb to it or immune to it, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think things are exposing themselves. The truth is coming out one way or another, and we are reaching like that next level where people are being. It's rough what we're seeing, but people are being forced to wake up. They're being forced to figure out things one way or another. So I can't see any other way it would have happened, and especially for it to happen as quickly as it is. But
Yeah, I'm imagining like people that can't take reality grab a whole bunch of pillows and put them all around them. And it's like, no, you won't get in.
the other night I had a dream that I ate a giant marshmallow. When I woke up, my pillow was gone.
Oh my!
That's for my kids. I'd say.
Okay. It's like to say. Did you hop on the scale afterwards? I'm like,
yeah. I didn't gain any weight too. It was great. Calorie free.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for myself, okay, I got a new cat. So that's been interesting. It's funny, like what's been happening is like as soon as the sun comes up, like I'll get a pounce on the head. I'll be like, what the heck is going on here? And then like I'll look around, the cat wants to play. He drags all of his cat toys all around me. And I'm like thinking to myself, no, this is not going to work out. I'm like, I need to sleep. So going through those kind of rough patches. But besides that, keeping busy, so many things happening with my office and work. That's keeping me busy. And then just put together this 8-part series for Symphony of Realities. And actually, if you go to the next slide, it'll cover these 8 topics of flipping the chessboard concepts is what I call it, because, we have been stuck in for, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000, so many thousands of years going through the same like reincarnation cycles, blah, 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 over and over again. But playing the same game that you can't win, or you think you're going to win, and then something happens and you got to start the game over again. So I'm calling these the flipping the chessboard concepts, and there are 8 of them. The first one is called higher self trading. And some people are going to be like, what the heck is higher self trading? But that's something you actually introduced me to, because I had no idea that our higher selves will trade with each other. And I don't know if you wanted to say a little bit about that concept, because I think it's or not.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to say anything about that concept, about what higher selves do in this down here in the earth realm.
Oh, sure. It's kind of simplistic, but has infinite amounts of detail. Essentially, there's a greater awareness version of you that's kind of like center in the heart, like your super consciousness, that your spark of light that comes out of in the fetus, that like incarnates that the field, you permeating the field with your memory and light stream of data of all the places you've ever been. That's shining the light as the incarnation into this body. Then that light shines out in a permeant field that grows and gets bigger and bigger, expanding with knowledge, and as its chest move throughout the planet and beyond, depending on how bigger it gets, it will use knowledge it knows and has gained for many lifetimes and is doing things around the planet, even when the physical person incarnate that's gone through amnesia barriers, memory wipe, create forgetting, regrowing itself back into new body tech that it's deemed worthy and advantageous to evolve in that period of time. And it would put more of that consciousness into the body. And so there's that the conscious mind, the super consciousness, that and the subconscious is the container of memory and data held in the body. Super consciousness center in the heart. The infinite consciousness, as you bring the consciousness into the heart, it unites and merges with that, and data flows in knowingness, and that's like more of the evidence of this presence existing, going along with your infinite self, your more divine self, you're connected to all of consciousness self, your source, all that's shining through as it expresses itself in the body. It's a way to differentiate itself from the rest of the branch of source that you and consciousness that you are. You can see, I like to use the term because that's been made popular, higher self, as that expands and is the hilltop view, looking at different things, influencing and chest moving for your life and how the experience will go, lessons, things you want to affect around the planet, yourself, becoming your greatest self is like one of the biggest goals, and that because that can permeate and make better every other one of your goals. And that expanding, another word I've seen that as the macro self, like this giant ghost spirit aspect of you that expands and does things and influences things around the planet, that has a lot of capabilities and can gain more as the spirit and the individual in this body grows, the DNA tech grows. You have the ability to amplify what it's doing, and it will teach you as you increase the stream of the knowingness coming in of what it already knows. So every time you grow, it grows, and vice versa. But it's wanting you to take on more of the responsibility of knowingness who you are. So it's easier because you can do things very instantly when they're linked into the conscious mind and the DNA tech. But your higher self, in the meantime, is like the way to get there, and it will help you do things, and it'll assist and be like got your back, because it is essentially you. And so everyone has this, whether they know it or not. Sometimes they're really limited or closed off or wounded or fractured or parts stolen or whatever. They're coping, and then they're going to the plan A, B, C, to all, depending on what happens, and constantly shifting. And sometimes their belief and their religion will lock in around them and cause different things depending on how they incarnate or reincarnated. But they'll have a presence of super consciousness, regardless, the internal wisdom, whatever you want to call it. And every time a person or consciousness in different space get closer in proximity, there's a increase in trade in energy, light form, biophotons, light, all kinds of things that like trade back and forth in data, information, blueprints of who they are. A lot of commerce and trade happens, especially with increased proximity. And that can be monitored, and more energy can go towards quickening that, as well as like meeting up or teaming up or trading skills, abilities, going through a mystery school for each person, and so forth.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. And I think it really amplifies it when you here in your conscious mind understand that this is happening. Then it amplifies it even more, and your higher self could do even more trading, and you become aware of it. So it's going to be a very interesting section of flipping the chessboard. And then for the second one I have here, light language. This is really fascinating because a lot of people know about light language. When I go through this segment, I talk about the science behind it. You know, what is language? I talk about something called wave genetics, which is something that actually the Russians have been pioneering, where your DNA emits different frequencies. So healthy DNA, let's say bone marrow DNA, emanates if it's healthy, it emanates a very healthy frequency. And people that have something like leukemia or something like that, their DNA can actually learn from healthy DNA. And it's a whole segment of science that's being pioneered. And then what is language? I talk about light language. I talk about its nemesis, which is dark language. Some people aren't aware of that, so I go into that a little bit. And then what I do is I also, because light language was something that I was gifted with a few years ago, I actually speak a little light language and do an activation for people. So stand by for that one, because that's going to be a super, super interesting segment. Is there anything about light language you wanted to add, Sean?
Oh, there's much to go. I'd love to hear what you have to say first, and then I'll like add on to it.
Or we save it for the podcast we do after we do, because we've got plenty of things to talk about today. So, and talking about that same topic for the third one here, bilocation, portals, control rooms, Kansas and Oz. We're going to be covering that, a little bit later. So we won't go into detail with that now, because we'll get into those segments a little bit further along. The fourth segment is an update on astronaut Gus Grissom and Topsy the elephant, which is going to be super, super, super interesting. And I talk a little bit about Gus Grissom today in this podcast. So I'll hold my thoughts for that until we get to that section. Number 5, timeline brand takeovers. That's where I talk about probably the most famous one is the Stouffer stovetop stuffing versus Kraft stovetop stuffing. So I talk about that, what it means, why did that happen, reading into it. People are going to find that like super, super interesting because there was a very important reason why that happened. And I'll go through and I'll explain that. So, and then 6 is talking about Mandela effects and timeline insertions, those concepts, going a little bit deeper into that. Number 7 are chess moves in the Earth game. And I talk about some different chess moves that people may not be aware of that have happened in the 50s and the 60s, which are very interesting. And then the 8th and the final part is reality and you. But all these things are designed to make people say like, oh, I never thought about that. So even if you don't agree with what I'm saying or it's the first time you've heard of it, as long as you keep an open mind that can't be but somehow is, then your consciousness could expand to another level. And it'll help us flip the chessboard. And that happens when we get enough consciousness people here on the planet understanding what is going on, like what is really going on of what reality is in the hologram here. So, okay. Unless you wanted to add anything, we can go on to the next slide.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Okay. So for these next 4 slides, this is like something that's like a personal Mandela effect. I'm going to go through this because I've been watching like the deaths of famous people. And one of the most famous was the assassination of Julius Caesar. But for a lot of people, they may be like a little bit fuzzy, like we knew he was assassinated, but we don't really remember the details. It's one of those type of historical things that you may have learned about, but then you may have forgotten. But it was one of the most famous assassinations, deaths in history. It happened on March 15th of 44 BC, known as the Ides of March. And this year, that's actually this coming Tuesday is March 15th. It's a day to watch out for betrayal. It's usually the date that coincides with, I think it's the new moon. So the Ides of March are something that is in our consciousness. I think it's technically the 74th day of when the Julian calendar began. The first thing that I spotted for me, like that was like, oh, this is different, was for me, it was at least a personal Mandela effect, is that I was always taught that he was assassinated in the Senate House, which is known as the Curia Cornelia. However, in this timeline, he was actually assassinated at Pompey's Theater in Rome. And it's interesting because not only is the setting changed, but it was Pompey's Theater in Rome. There was a big statue of Pompey, and he was actually murdered below that statue of Pompey, who 3 days later, he was supposed to be, Caesar was launching a campaign to prevent like a civil war because Pompey was leading an uprising against Rome. So that, for me, that's different. For a lot of people that, aren't quite crystal clear, it may have been, they thought it was in the Senate House, but it was not. It was actually at Pompey's Theater. That was one thing. We'll go on to the next slide. And the thing too is that the number of senators that assassinated Caesar, I was always taught it was like actually over 40. However, now it's 20 senators who actually assassinate him and stab him 23 times. Some accounts say 21 times. And the mastermind behind the plot is someone that I had never heard of called Decimus. And Caesar actually had dinner with him the night before. And it said that Caesar loved Decimus. I wasn't aware of who Decimus was. So to me, that was another, again, personal Mandela effect. The next thing is Mark Antony hears about the plot and he goes to warn Caesar, but he's delayed by an hour because one of the other senators is purposely trying to hold him back because they're afraid that Mark Antony is going to be there to defend Caesar. This particular painting you see on the right is at Caesar's funeral, where Mark Antony says his famous words. He starts off by saying, "Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." A lot of people remember hearing that thing. And that I think is part of in Shakespeare's play of Julius Caesar is where Mark Antony says that. What else is interesting is that in my old timeline, a lot of the senators, and there were over 20, that actually had assassinated him or stabbed him later, or they dipped their knives in the blood to be like, oh, I was part of this. Now it's down to 20, and they're all killed within 1 year, which is really interesting too. They're all hunted down. Some of them commit suicide, but all within a year, they're all dead. So what did they accomplish? They didn't accomplish anything. And then Mark Antony made it so that all of Caesar's edicts stayed in place. So they didn't accomplish anything. They met their own demises.
Like puppeted?
Yeah. So it's a very interesting situation. I think we've got one more slide.
Someone who was probably covering their tracks that knew who like ordered them to do it.
Yeah. And then for some of you that watched my Symphony of Realities, you'll remember I did an episode on crystal eyes and how a lot of these statues have crystal eyes that I don't ever remember seeing. And guess who's got a pair of crystal eyes? Caesar. So, and those eyes look kind of interesting, right?
Right? Yeah, they look like magnetic or hypnotizing, or kind of like he's gonna bite your throat off or something.
Exactly. Or at least he's observing the timelines through those crystal eyes. So yeah, so I just wanted to cover those things about that, so people have some idea about Julius Caesar. So if there are even more changes that happen, we can note those from our memory, from our consciousness, what we remember. So, okay. So we'll go on to the next slide. All right. The big Kansas trip. And I'll start off by saying, like, why Kansas, right? Sri Lanka seemed like it was a lot more fun. So when I was trying to figure it out, like where I should go, I was asking my higher self for direction. Like, where should I go? Like, what part of the world? And I got North America. And I'm like, okay, in the United States? Yeah, in the United States. Okay, that's good. And then I was trying to narrow it down, like, where in the United States should I go? Should I go in the northern US, the southern US, the eastern, the west? I kept asking, and it was like, no, not a northern state, not a southern state, not an eastern state, not a western state. I'm thinking, so where am I supposed to go? In the center? And I got a yes. And guess what's in the center of the United States? Is Kansas, of all places. So Kansas was the answer. And then I got directed to this place called Monument Rocks. And we have a couple of short little video clips from when we approached Monument Rocks. And I don't know if there's anything you wanted to mention about this part of our adventure. It actually is on private property, but it is a national landmark. This is kind of what it looks like from the ground. There's different sets of rocks there too. You see on the right is my pickup truck. We actually did a road trip. And isn't that interesting how when we started, we were like 8 hours into the road trip and the navigation stopped working?
It's just whatever, go is like go west. Yeah.
And I was
like, no, whatever.
I was planning on the nav system in the truck working, and it stopped. And we wound up doing everything through Google, through using Google Maps on our phones. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, we were fairly energetic during it, taking turns, just go the whole way, don't stop. Fucking, I went through at night, and so if anyone has like trouble like with falling asleep on the wheel kind of stuff, do you like fire breath while you're like hold your solar plexus and you purify it of anything like in the ego or the shadow, or so that you turn on all these generators in the body and you fill up with chi, and you can do a bunch of like qigong compressing, and my God, I had so much energy. I was like rocking out to music the time. It was a good test. If I was like, you tried just using coffee before and it wasn't working, so I ended up having to do with that. I was like, oh man, this is good stuff. I write this down, like while driving.
Yeah, and it was like 25 hours on the road, so it wasn't. We were like on the road a long time, but glad to make it. It reminded me too of when we were in Germany, when we went to Castle Wielsberg, and we had our friend George was driving his Range Rover with his nav system, and his nav system cut out, and it took us so long to actually finally get there. But yeah, sometimes these interesting things happen with navigation when you're trying to do these make these kind of journeys.
Yeah, it's like traveling through Scotland. There's like so much like undiscovered stuff, like just hidden and with like moss and grass covered over it. Like, remember that like weird tunnel entrance thing we found? Like, it's like, where does this go?
Oh yeah, that was. I know.
Yeah, we didn't have too much time to like investigate it all, but it seemed to be like covered over with rocks and stuff, and so somebody couldn't just enter into it anymore. Yeah, there's weird things that are just hidden all over the place. And unless you're like right there, you can't like tell where it is. Same thing. There's like a map of a large amount of pyramids in the United States that I didn't know existed. And I'm like, oh shit, that's awesome. We gotta like hit that up.
What is that?
Yeah, I ordered it. So there's like a map that it's like map pyramids of of Americas or something, and there's like a bunch over 500 pyramids in America alone. But like, what it was at least 11,000 in the Mesoamerica and South America tip, maybe top part. There's probably more than that, honestly, depending on your definition of pyramids and mounds.
Right. Then you hear the stories about the government and the military in the 1800s and 1700s, like destroying pyramids and destroying that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So this monument of the rocks, they're 80 million year old chalk monoliths. They're also referred to as chalk pyramids. You know, now that we're talking about pyramids, they don't quite look like pyramids. They were the first landmark in Kansas chosen by the U.S. Department of the Interior, which is interesting because they do really stand out on the plains. And they would say that the pioneers, when they were navigating out west, they would use this to make sure they were on the right path. So a lot of the pioneers would actually go by this, or at least see this in their sight to make sure they were going in the right direction. And it was once under a shallow sea, which is interesting. And when we got there, like we were reading into all different types of things about what they were and a portal to where and what kind of a portal was it. And what would you like to share about that particular portal there in Kansas called Monument Rocks?
Yeah, do you have like a video of like approaching the gateway of it?
Yeah, actually, so what happened before we play the video, we've got two videos to play. One where I went through the portal, and then the other one where you went through the portal. And so, you know, we'll play the one of me first, and I'll kind of walk people through what happened. Because the first part is doing this process called this supernova, bringing up energy from the earth and charging yourself up. And there's a great view of the sun too on the other side. And then walking through the portal. Yeah, and then you went through the portal as well.
I'm like in trance. I guess it froze.
Yeah. So Sean, how would you describe what kind of portal that was?
So all those. Okay, I was. Okay. All those pillars are like a different aspect of piezoelectric and like orgonite tech concept of programming. It'd be like different modules of the supercomputer that would then fuel this gateway, and then this gateway was, as I was reading into it, linked to a portal that could energetically transfer spirits back and forth between different realms. It has not been used to physically transport anything in a long time, but I read it does have the capability to do that if having enough power and the ceremony intact with the technology to do it, and then the authority, of course, of where you're allowed to travel to. And each person that goes through it can interact with it. There's like a collective around it that audits the beings that interact with it, and they can spiritually trade with it in commerce, and then it can trade back the ability to bilocate a part of them, or dreaming body, astral body, or spiritual bilocation to another place that they have granted access to based on what they earned in the past. If they have interacted with before, if it likes them, the collective likes them and has gained authority, and you can gain more, and you can see how many realms that you gain access to. If you have enough energy, you can either go through one to another realm or multiple at the same time in interacting with it, depending on how much bilocations you can make at once and the fuel you put into it, because it just doesn't have infinite amounts of energy to do it, so you got to supply it.
Yeah, and before we went through the portal too, something that people didn't see was that we located on either side, on the left side in the front or the left side in the back, there is an indentation where we put our hands. It was a nice little indentation so that they could read like our DNA and who we were to see what we were authorized for. And then, and then our light bodies, etc., could go off on adventures and then come back again.
Yeah, you'll notice this with place of power rock structures. There'll be a certain part or angle or side of it that has, if you access it through that, then it's kind of like an access panel keyboard, amplifies your intention, syncs up with you. Sometimes it's camouflaged for a reason, so that not everyone can just do it. So like if somebody were to interact with the rock, they could go so far with it, but they may not be able to do everything unless they have a lot more authority and they know where the exact access point is over the place of power. Some places will allow it, and as well from a distance, though. I have, depending on how powerful it is, it's more likely to shield itself and camouflage itself off and not allow beings to do stuff from a distance with it, unless they have a lot of energy and they're willing to make it worth the being's while, the collective of the place power.
Yeah, and it has like a kind of TSA arrangement too, on either side, going through the portal or anything that might want to try to come into this realm through the portal has to get through the TSA, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's willing to work with, it's a tourist attraction, so it already interacts with enough people, so it's willing to like interact with whoever goes there. But yeah, you got to be respectful and well mannered, and do what it is necessary for it to do what you want. It depends on the person. I don't know. It might not allow evil people to access. That would lessen their capability.
Exactly.
And then it would start shutting down if it starts trying to get dominated. So don't recommend people dominate it.
And if anybody does go to it, I just want to mention that you will be driving miles and miles and miles down dirt roads. My truck was covered in dirt and dust after that journey. So keep that in mind as well too.
Yeah, we brought a little bit back with us.
Yeah, and I was reading that overall it had access to like at least 1 million Earth realms, which is crazy. And then you were reading into, I believe, a connection with Lemuria.
Oh yeah. That's like around the last, like that frame of time, a little bit before Atlantis, going back in civilization, back when higher dimensionality and psionic abilities flourished, and civilizations didn't need as much advanced technology, but could interact with the land technology greatly. That's the last time physically somebody went through it as a portal. I was reading, at least that I'm allowed to see, because they might just camouflage it. That's at least what publicly people are allowed to know anyway.
Exactly. So that was this is actually on my birthday. This is like the one place that we went to. And then let's go to the next slide. Okay, I got Chewbacca on this one because I have a cat that had a life as a. Anyway, we'll talk about a Sasquatch. But so Kansas is in the center of the United States, and what is this thing about Kansas being an infinite energy generator, Sean? What does that mean?
Yeah. Right. So all the different territories around the planet and beyond will usually have beings, spirits that got together in the formation of the landmass. Like this would be like like Earth forming collectives, beings that are granted authority to hold space for an experience, and then like them set up territories all around, and then expand the collective and what manifests off them, what generates the life around, etc. That incarnates around the area. Those spirits will have things they're good at, and each territory will change in many different ways depending on the personality of the spirit that became the landmass or the island or whatever. And so, especially with belief systems and territorial space, the United States' delegation, the North America delegating territory to the United States, because it, as the people caretakers above it, made borders that will then spiritually affect it, and then territories that go forth that, and that then is a constant changing thing in the collective around it. But there'll usually be a spirit that was always there since the beginning. That's like the main governing holding space thing, and that has like some interesting awareness of back and forth in time of what it will be engaging in. So it's very advanced in that. But also the land I've seen, it can be either be very spiritual and alive and very interactive with the people that are above it, or it can be like kind of like have a bunch of negativity dumped on it, like cities, and be shut down or in dormancy or in a coma sometimes, and they're needing awakening process so that it can have more interaction with the people and bring synchronicities and magic back that has been traumatized through wars and catastrophes and falls of civilizations. That a lot of stuff was stolen, like soul shards and parts and abilities and things, so it has to like shield itself and shut down. And then as we're rising back up into our power, we grow that territory back. So each territory and these defined borderlands will have things that accumulate in experience of what they're good at. Either they were good at it the whole time, or based on all the experiences, people that have incarnated there, and that percenters of minds and colleges and all that will add to this effect of a list of things that the state consciousness is good at. One of the main things I read for Kansas that it's good at, every state you're in has different things they're good at, is infinite energy generation, which would go into like a farming kind of being able to create energy efficiently and bringing it out of the void, which is not really creation, but it's like bringing out of all the potential energy field, which can hold a whole bunch of energy compressed in a very small amount of space, and then bringing that up into the yang to that yin physical energetic interaction in this realm. So yeah, and so that supplies a bunch of energy to the entire United States, and you can see all these states as kind of like organs of the body, or hardware to the computer of the United States and what it makes up. And so some of the systems are working well, some aren't. Some are full of viruses. Some have to change their protocol of what they're good at to shield from things incurring. All this kind of stuff is happening for different territories.
Yeah, and when we start talking about one of the slides in the future, we talk about Arkansas, and you read into some interesting things about Arkansas. But really, every state has a consciousness and something that it's good at, which is like really fascinating. But if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. The other part on here too is, so the night before that we were going to visit Monument Rocks, went to another place called Castle Rock as well. But the night before, you spotted something on the map. Now, one of the things I always knew was that when we would be going to Kansas, someplace we're going to be going to some site that had to do with the Mandela effect, like a Mandela effect generator, let's say. And literally the night before, you were looking at a map of Kansas and you're like, what is that? So we're not going to say what the location is, but there was a location that you spotted. And so right after we went to Monument Rocks and Castle Rock, that night, or actually later on in that day, we drove to this other location, which was it was at least 50 miles away. It could have been even as much as 100 miles away. And we were getting some interesting energy thrown at us. Sean, do you want to describe what was happening?
Sure. So when we're going to Kansas, I was looking at like, oh, what's going to be good at, and the things here, because nothing against Kansas, but it's not like the thing you think of when you're like wanting to go on vacation. Exactly. So I was like, oh, okay, what's there and what's the big pull? And it's like, oh yeah, it's a really big pull based on like it being the center of the United States and having like a big sway over a lot of things. I was just like, oh, is that true? It seems a little too good to be true. And like, if it's all North America, and I was like, no, it actually has a big central point that affects the entire United States. So I was like, oh, geez, okay. And like that might be traumatic. Like, okay, whatever, I'll have a good time. So then I was looking around for places like, and anyone essentially like, what do I gain from this information? If you're in a state that's good at something, like Kansas is good at infinite energy generator, Connecticut's good at law, or the Florida's got a bunch of freedom and awakening going on, then you will be affected by that energy and be going throughout it in your your micro system as well. So you can upgrade in that quite dramatically, and you can trade with state, become very good friends with it, and have it support kind of like a supercomputer that you're working with, that you're on top of and linked to with your supercomputer. So this place of power, we're as soon as we found it, I mean, we're getting a lot of data coming in the sensor of like everything while we're going across the country. And all these states have different interesting stuff. We were trading with that the entire time. But when we got there, we started getting a little bit pushback. But it mostly all started as soon as we found out about that place. It's like it had a huge awareness, a thing around it. So the place of power has a consciousness, but there was a predator or collective of predator, spiritual multidimensional predators on top of that were stealing and draining energy from it and using that to like make itself huger and gain like a large amount of awareness and be like a spiritual big brother type of thing, where it could read people's thoughts and attach them and gain information on who would be a threat to it. And it was looking for anyone that mentioned it or was a threat, and it would raise up on its people to pay attention to. And as soon as we started bringing up on the maps and other stuff and looked at it, it started reacting. And then the closer we got to it, it even more reacted, and kind of like pressures and pains and like stabbing and eye pain and headaches and like stabbing the top of the head, and a lot of death energy was sent as we were getting closer. So it's like, wow, this really doesn't want us to do it. And it showed the capability of the apex predator that was involved. And I was like, oh, so you were talking about the Mandela place of power aspects. So we're going into that, and it's not just literally called that. It's a point in the United States that has a lot of authority on the entire United States, and how its distribution of energy throughout it is orchestrated. And there's like something trying to take control over that, and lessen its ability for its natural growth and awakening, and get back into its power. So there's something trying to steal from that, and control the timelines. And they're holding back the timelines. If this place opened up, it would make the timelines way better and cause a whole bunch of Mandela effects and in positive things back in time that like build up, making the timeline way better, and releasing a bunch of attachments to negative timelines and influences that were constantly stealing energy from people back in time. Because this effect would change the timeline of the United States, especially like back in time, like with the founding fathers. I saw a lot of stuff with that. And also Colorado has a bunch of things with the Philadelphia experiments, and Colorado Springs, and some military bases and things that went on around there. So there's like a big rip in space-time wound around the mountain area around that place. And there's a lot of activity that happens around there with ETs and stuff that are targeting it and using it to try to go back in time, or utilize that time authority to do something with time travel. And it's constantly annoying to see beings trying to steal that, and then having to resolve it, because it comes with my dashboard frequently. And it affects a lot of things otherwise, because there's other factions from other countries that don't have that rip, that are wanting to steal that tech as well. The military is kind of dealing with that.
Yeah, and it seems that when the white man came is when these predators really attached themselves to that area. And I think it's really interesting too how it was like almost exactly in the center of the United States.
Yeah, and as we got closer and closer, it kind of it was, a little bit annoying, but then we activated, and then we went home, and then it like ramped up a lot, and it was like trying to do a camouflage, but it's like the predator. It's like a big battle that went on, and it like kept me from sleeping for like 2 days, and I was like in a lot of pain, and my arms were in pain. They were like flaring up, and I had to like keep doing go in the shower, hot cold to just like purify a bunch of it, and then eventually get through it, and then grow past it, and then take down the predators. But yeah, it turned out to be a bigger thing than I was reading that we'd get into nonchalantly, but whatever.
Yeah, it's just this whole thing, like the way things happened was so interesting. And we were probably like maybe 30 miles out from it, and we were getting closer to it, and we were sensing the death energy. And I think at one point you said, you just want to turn around and go back. And I'm like, no, something's throwing death energy at us. We're going to deal with it now, because it's not going to stop. So yeah, so that was something that I feel that we accomplished that was pretty important.
Oh yeah, huge. And if anyone else is doing that kind of grid work, start small with the smaller grid work and build up, because it's like it builds up your entourage and your power amplitude, so you can take on more dramatic places of power that are being dominated by predators, or the system domination control, or circuitry, sacred geometry buildings, banks, offices, courtrooms, all these Mason buildings that are built on place of power. Those are the things that if you're wondering if this is real or not, I mean, I don't recommend doing it if you don't want to get beaten up, but if you want to, I mean, it's good evidence so that this stuff is real, that, if you just activate a place and open something up, there will be a big battle over it, and you're going to get kind of hurt spiritually, and as well as they'll, depending on how big the predator is, it will cause you pain and may send death energy at you, which may lessen your life or shut down your organs. So be very careful. Not condoning just doing it at anyone. You got to know what the place you're doing. There are less dramatic places, so start with those and just read how dramatic it is before you open up anything. But it will have if it is a powerful thing and you're powerful enough to resolve it, then you can change the timeline dramatically and free up. Like, this would be a big vampiric predator that steals from the place of power, and then it expands its territory and tries to steal from everyone in the area, and grow bigger to steal from everyone in the United States, camouflage wide. So when you resolve that, you're taking out a predator that's stealing energy. Everyone gets more energy. Everyone grows faster, and it's a much better timeline.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the grid work we did there was ultimately successful, and we shall see what the future holds. And then this last bullet point I wanted to mention was about Bigfoot in Kansas, because when we got there, I kept getting the message about like Bigfoots in the area and Sasquatch in the area. And I'm like, we're in Kansas. Like, there's no Sasquatch in Kansas. That's ridiculous. Usually it's like wooded areas, deep in the forest and all that. And I kept on getting, no, there is some kind of like nearby realm where there was a group of Sasquatch living, and interdimensionally, and that some would come to the surface every so often to find out and observe what was going on. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, am I getting bad information? Because I'm also reading, there's angels here and this, all these other positive things. And not to say Sasquatch isn't positive, but I wasn't expecting that. And then I remember us talking about it. And then when we got back a couple weeks later in January, there was a report of a family that spotted Sasquatch in Kansas. And I'm like, okay, so maybe I'm not completely off the beaten trail here. And then there's this book about, I have it here on the slide, Bigfoot in Kansas, but there's a lot of sightings of all things Bigfoot in Kansas. So I thought that was like really interesting too. So sometimes when we get messages, it may not make sense to us at first, and sometimes we might have to like observe it more and sit with it more and try to see if this is an authentic message. But yeah, so could be there are Bigfoots that come to the surface up to this realm on Earth every once in a while. And there's more specific things I was reading about them, but it was like really interesting.
Yeah, I remember I think it was the cafe when we were looking up the number, like, because you were reading that Sasquatch, and I was like, oh, really? And then we looked up the number of how many sightings, and I was very surprised how big it was. So you wouldn't think that, but yeah, and for people that are like new to the Sasquatch, Gigantopithecus, different hominids. There's a lot of hominids. Homo florensis is hobbits. There's a bunch of those in New Zealand. Like, look those up. Homo capensis. There's a bunch of ones that are branching off that don't. It's weird because science is not doing a good job in explaining them all. But yeah, and when you start diving into the accounts of experiencers and ones that have sightings and visitations and interaction with like UFOs and other stuff, and beings that claim to be in telepathic communication with these, it'll be surprising to you because like a lot of people that just start with this will be like, oh, it's just some random wood ape thing, and there's not much intelligence to it. Depends on the faction. I'd say there's ones that are feral, that are separated from the group. Some that are vicious too. There seem to be ones that are highly aggressive and don't like humans, because they seem to be an infringement on their population. And then there are the more positive ones. There seems to have been an evolutional process that has gone through whatever their civilization was in the past, where they have high amounts of spiritual tech. And some people will claim that they have the ability to teleport or go out of phase or go into another dimension or telepathically communicate. have a high amount of spiritual tech in their DNA technology. And I haven't, been able to physically too much confirm much of this, but spiritually, when I reach out to anytime I'm in an area where they have a civilization, I'll reach out and they do respond, and in a way that like will give you nudges and stuff, as well as some have shown up in the area in like a way where you hear a strange call that you never heard from any other species if you're like out in a campfire or something, as an example. And weirdly on the one day you're spiritually interacting with them. So stuff to look into.
Yeah. So who would have thought? And you wonder too if George Lucas, when he was creating Star Wars and the Chewbacca character, if he had something like the Sasquatch in mind when he was putting Chewbacca together. Definitely seems to be a connection there.
Yeah, Cousin It or something.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so St. John, Kansas. St. John is was kind of like our base of where we stayed. And I immediately got directed that we should stay in St. John. And I know there's another St. John in the Caribbean, because for a long time, for many, many years, I would always go to St. John, which is next to St. Thomas in the Caribbean, to vacation. I loved it. It was really quiet, beautiful place. And then there's a St. John in Kansas. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. But right on the map, it directed me to go there. And when I started looking into the history of St. John, it really started to resonate with me, because the founder of St. John, whose name was William Bickerton, he was an excommunicated Mormon. And the main reason that happened is because, from what I was able to learn, he had disagreed with Brigham Young about polygamy. So he wound up being excommunicated from the church, and he started his own, the Church of Christ, or the Church of Jesus Christ. And himself and 40 families traveled from Pennsylvania to St. John, Kansas. And that was a very interesting location that they chose. They settled there in 1875. And when William Bickerton got there, and by the way, that mural, or that what you see as far as the picture goes, I'll just describe that too. That's the original. It's actually in St. John, Kansas. It's on the side of a building. That's a scene of the pioneers, or the Church of Christ people coming in and settling into the area. And when William Bickerton got there, he drove this spike into the ground, the way the story goes. And he said that no tornado will ever hit St. John, Kansas. That happened in 1875. And guess how many tornadoes have hit St. John, Kansas since then? 0, nothing. And we were talking to some of the locals there, and they're like, it's amazing. Like, there was these huge tornadoes that were coming towards the town, and they would actually change course and move away from the town. There was one tornado that was coming right to the town, and they said it skipped. It like jumped up in the air and then landed on the other side of the town. So it appears that there's a type of tornado technology that William Bickerton had access to. And I wanted you to share your thoughts about, this tornado technology and what you read into that.
Yeah, that was a good description on that. Yeah, when you got there, well, when you were telling me about it, I thought it was really interesting, because that would go into like the shamanic technique of how to steer the tornado, or
Yes,
curve it away from the village to stop incoming threats, stop hurricanes, weather control, all kinds of interesting, as well as fortress protection. And I was reading that, especially when we got there. I wanted to read like more of the fortress when we got there. And a lot of stuff started contacting me right away when we got in the area. Seemed to definitely be a high presence of Christ consciousness, a huge amount of angels protecting the town, and like versions of the people higher self. They seem to be on a place of power. The ritual that sealed it seemed to go along with everyone involved in the formation, as well as the William Bickerton the stake he drew into the ground with where the church was. Yeah, it seemed to be acting as a big fortress that would keep expanding and was interacting with everything around the area and outside Kansas itself, and things that were constantly trying to steal energy from Kansas. So it was like fortressing up against that.
Yeah, and one of the reasons too that, just as a side point, going to St. John and discovering stuff about William Bickerton, we met with the man for like an afternoon who was part of that Church of Christ, and he was a descendant of the original pioneers that came down. But it was the whole story about Bickerton was resonating with me because for myself personally, and for those of you that don't know, I was excommunicated from the church that I went to when I was in my mid-30s, a church called the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I started asking questions, and I was actually excommunicated ultimately for asking questions. And I remember I said, you can't excommunicate me for asking questions. And they said, we can when it's the wrong questions. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm out of here. So, but going through that whole process of like losing your friends and your family, because in some of these religions, they make the shunning very, very powerful. You're not allowed to talk to people you've known your whole life. So I went through that experience. Bickerton went through that experience. And just getting to the town and feeling the energy and feeling all the angels. There's a lot of angels in that little town. So they're very, they don't know how blessed they are over there, but it was a really nice experience overall.
Yeah, there's some interesting beliefs, and it definitely has the power to stop or steer around or influence tornadoes to go in a different direction. I was reading that, and we're trading for that authority to be able to do that, and definitely worth it. So if you have a chance, if around the area, do go there and trade with the angels. Yeah, and a lot of the people there may not know, but they have some spiritual connection with the angels there, and the church there seems to be called the Church of Jesus Christ. So it's pretty simplistic with its name too, and interesting. The history was the guy was telling us about the Mormon wars and like between their different viewpoints and the things of all the different Christian sects and that are branching off of each other.
Exactly. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, well, you can't go to Kansas without going to the Oz Museum, of course, right? So that picture there is the picture
Or Oz itself.
Or Oz itself, exactly. The Earth realm known as Oz. And it's funny because you tracked down a location that happened to be in zip code 66606.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was there. I was the zip code was there until we got like really close to it, and I was like, "Wait, this can't be the zip code." I was and it wasn't like it was a little bit. I forget how long away from the Museum of Oz was it. It was quite a bit.
It was like 45 from the museum. It was like 45 minutes.
Yeah, so we didn't even know. I didn't even know the museum was near this place. I tuned into the place before I knew where the museum was. So it's just constantly looking for where any activity of what would be influencing the whole mythos of Oz and Kansas and the guy that created the book series. And that's what I was finding. There are some people that interacted with in the past. So that spiritually, there's like people that have a connection, that have a way to access a realm that would be involved in the painting of the mythos, as well as places of physical power that were open in the past. They all were shut down though. It seemed to be something weird that big happened that made the realm want to isolate itself from this one. Like a bunch of things from this realm were stealing from it, magic and things, and so it didn't like that, so it started shutting down. So it was interesting.
Yeah, Yeah, when we got close to the location too, it was actually this particular location was right on a river next to I think it was the Kansas River, and we almost lost you, Sean. Do you remember?
I was sliding into the river. I was like, oh shit.
It's so slippery there, but yeah, and there was like a beaver dam next to this area. So
Did you grab me from sliding into the?
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, it was hard because I was sliding. You were already wet. You were starting to get submerged, and then I grabbed you, and then I started sliding in, but you got out, so it was a happy ending, thank God.
I got my was it portal baptism?
Yeah, something like that. And in one of the videos that's upcoming, I talk a little bit more about Oz. You know, could Frank Baum, who created the Wonderful Wizard of Oz book series, could he have dreamt of Oz? Could he have bilocated there? Could Oz be an actual reality filled with magical, mythical creatures and perhaps even the Emerald City? And, you know, a lot of times, you know, people think of Oz, the movie, and, you know, they got the Munchkins, but could the Munchkins have been dwarves? Could Oz be a land of good witches and wizards and wicked witches and wizards? What about lion people? You know, could they have existed in this realm? And you were reading a lot of things too about the magic energy that was there and the how they're able to harness, I'm sorry, chaos energy. Is there anything like that you mention about this realm of Oz and how it operates?
For sure, I'll go into a bunch, but I wanted to know what you thought. Do you think Oz exists?
The actual realm of Oz?
Yeah, well, it doesn't have like it's probably not called that at all. But do you think there's a realm that influenced the creative flow and imagination of the writers that then made this mythos?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like it's another one of those soft disclosure type things. That when you read his books or you watch the movie, your mind opens up to the possibility that is it possible that a tornado using some kind of vortex technology was able to take Dorothy and Toto in their house into this magical land. So yeah, I believe that there's not just this, we'll call it Oz, not just this realm, but obviously many, many other realms.
Sweet, yeah, I agree with that. Like, let us know your thoughts in the comments, because we're not trying to like just paint what reality is, or looking for evidence and like prodding it with science and figuring out if it gets feedback back. So when we were first looking for this concept and like what Oz was, I was getting information about like these are bleedovers from different realms that have immigration influenced our species. So this is what I'm painting. Don't make this is what I'm tuning into. So believe whatever you want. Just put it on a shelf. See if you can investigate for yourself and get more data on this. It's a good topic to go into when figuring out where are all the realms that aren't in our mythos, like in the Tree of Yggdrasil of Norse mythology, with the 9 primary incarnating realms of the neutral, the light realms, heaven realms, the dark realms of Kilopoth, or the hellish quarantine realms. So in like neutral, like a tree of life that comes off of different planets of all the realms that they have overlaid on top of each other, that are take places of planes or planets in form of hologram for an experience, and they for compressed space they can be overlaid over each other, like changing TVs on a channel still being received. It's different vibrational frequency you can either shift, or you have to, because these are all quarantined realms from each other, and they don't necessarily like to just share everything. Things have to go through immigration ports or earn the authority to travel between them. So I was getting a little bit of data on Oz existing, but before this trip, I had no access to it. It was very shielded off and wouldn't allow me or anyone else from this realm that I could tell, unless they had already interacting relations in the past, to access it. So it seems very shielded off and tapped and targeted. It's like something found out that it existed as a realm around the time getting disclosed back in time with the books and the show and movie, where some big predator that was trying to go after the origin of the magic that was coming and emanating off of people's imagination that was inspired by this, to target that and then steal its magic, steal some of its magic, and that caused it to retract and then shield itself off and stop all immigration, and then influence and bleed over as chess moved. When I was looking at the influence, it seemed like something had an invested interest from this realm to inspire more magic here at a time when people were losing all hope, dying, committing suicide.
The Great Depression. Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like something wanted to change the entire timeline from a negative timeline effect that would be caused by the Great Depression and bring back the magic and keep it alive and spur new magic and people's creation to make the world a better place. And in that idealistic kind of imagined world, and then bring it here with new creations. And that would then create more magic here and create a locomotion effect or snowball effect that would influence people to become magic oriented here. That because we're like super hybrids of a bunch of different species with different types of abilities and technology that they've cultivated for long periods of time, all merged together in a skin suit technology that has high-powered spirits incarnating that still have amnesia but are fast evolving to wake up with high drama situations, to learn how to overcome them. And if they engage in magic, they start interacting in their DNA tech a lot more, and then can solve problems very easily for places and worlds and realms that have been going through a problem for a long period of time. It's like a big problem to them, especially if their DNA lineage isn't as diverse. To us, it's a lot easier to resolve. So they're looking to us as like an antidote for a lot of things. And then after that effect, we help go back to that influence and through that inspire people to seek out what Oz is and then interact with it, making it better again. So
just to add to that too, like whenever there is some kind of a movie that comes out that really resonates with people, like you take the original Star Wars, for example, people watch that like, wow, this is incredible. I just love this movie. I need to keep watching it over and over again. It's because something is resonating with them. They're remembering something. Same thing with movies like The Matrix, like that whole concept, like, could we be in a type of Matrix? Could we be in a type of holographic reality that it's not what we were taught that it is? It's so much more, and it's being controlled by something, outside of this force. So when The Wizard of Oz came out, that movie was so popular, like so popular. I remember as a kid, like it was on every single year. So every single year you'd watch that movie, The Wizard of Oz. It would capture your imagination. It would make you happy. So to me, that's also a big clue that there's something to it when those type of things happen.
Oh yeah, huge amounts of influence, upgrades every time you watch the video, with the beings from Oz influencing the timeline through the author that made the books and then the TV show, and everyone inspired. It like creates like a collective consciousness towards that goal that's shared in their higher selves that then permeates it and then you can like kind of imagine like the stock market. There would be like a like, how well is this doing? And then
Okay.
versus like the opposition that wants to lessen how much magic there is in the world. Yeah, and there's a lot of media that has spurred off of it, like the Wiz with Michael Jackson, the Oz the Great and Powerful, which is pretty good in spelling out some of the concepts of other realms, and flying to another different witch kind of overpowered things. There's a show that kind of goes on it too, I think, called The Tin Man with Zoe Deschanel. If you haven't looked in that, go for it. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so that to me, those are all big soft disclosure type clues. Now, one of the things that you were reading into too is that, you know, you got in the land of Oz, you have these witches and wizards, and some are good and some are bad, but a lot of them are old and they're not really having children. So, but there is a way for them to have children, and that is with what, Sean?
Okay.
I mean,
That's a big subject. Through Tinder, of course.
okay, but it's primarily like through humans too, right? Like, so, like, because witches don't usually breed with other witches, and like witches and wizards don't breed together, right? They can't really have children.
They could initially, but there seems to be like a bunch of blocks and curses and fertility blocks that have been put on them energetically in programming that has appeared to stop them. So this is my tuning into this concept. So other people will have different things, but like what are witches and wizards besides like what we hear about, like the Wiccan community, the wise people, wise women, sages, wizards, sorcerers, people that tune into source or the negative dark sorcerers or whatever, all this kind of stuff for people that interact with knowing nature deeply, the science of nature, to know deeply into how physics and of reality work. Also, magic is a term, energy that gets shit to happen or manifest, or all those kind of ways to describe it. Like dark or neutral, and there's all these systems to it, and where you can create it and permeate it. We have the DNA tech for it. There's a bunch of species that have gone into it in their own culture that then we emerge, and then we can draw upon that as well if we release the blocks. There are some species that have because they're so magical, there's a lot of drama attracted to them, so they go through the hurdles of that, and then we also inherit that. So so witches and wizards, there's specific DNA lineages that I've tuned into that are very overpowered. I like to categorize those as like the extradimensional witches and wizards. Sometimes they don't necessarily have to gain access to other dimensions to be able to have the DNA lineage, but if it's a successful one that's been around a long period of time and is accessing its DNA tech, then I will usually find it having the ability to like make a pocket dimension that holds like a place with links to different woods, and have its own little cottage in the woods that's like secluded, and it can be camouflaged and doesn't have to worry about anyone, and it can last throughout the centuries with life extension tech. And I've tracked back quite a few of these that have existed that are neutral and don't really mess with the world except for the agendas that they see fit. And there's a bunch of mythos for all these types of wizards and witches throughout our history. When I track back the DNA lineage, a lot of it I see goes back to Sirius, like Sirius A, especially when you want to look to like what are the species that come from Sirius A. It's kind of like a garden world that's similar to Earth, where it started adopting a bunch of species that were going like refugee worlds where they're getting destroyed, and so those species needed a new place to live. Either they're transferred through like spaceships, or like the realm tech, like an overlay bilocation of the planet, and it like overlaid with the new planet that they would be immigrating to, and then portals or openings and gateways would open up and then allow an immigration to come through to this world, as an example, because the Sirius was going through wars. A bunch of species immigrated from those realms, such as like Japanese mythos, Celtic mythos, lung dragon, like Chinese, Japanese lung type of dragons, and a bunch of like mythic creatures, and a lot. I read a lot of species came from both Sirius and Orion's, but also their lineage is, so they're like kind of like mythologically soft disclosed as like Gandalf, like angelic, strong, powerful beings with high authority incarnating into a physical body that can gain life extension tech and live a really long time. Those DNA lineages, both witches and wizards, they'll have like dominating structure, a dominant structure with a specific gender, but you can have both witch and wizard DNA in those lineages that permeate, and still be a different gender. That lineage though is older than Sirius and has a bunch of hybridization going on with it too. But I mostly see what came to Earth through that seeded the witch and wizard extradimensional DNA from Sirius. And so you can imagine like Sirius having hundreds of realms during times of catastrophe or targeting, or things would be causing harm and hunting down these species, them bilocating the realm to overlay with Earth, immigrating a bunch of the species to other realms here. They don't have to be this realm. A bunch of other, Earth has like a lot of realms she made. Every planet has a fair amount of realms, and they can link together and trade. So I keep seeing these lineages that are overpowered having to flee from war situations or targeting and all that to escape and survive, so they don't get dominated or turn into dark expressions of themselves or all their power stolen or whatever. So a bunch of those witches and wizards will mostly have immigrated to Magick realms of this planet. And a lot of those realms are very quarantined, and you have to know the right person or know the right place, immigration, or earn the right to go there or interact with it, because a lot of beings want to steal the magic. It's kind of like if a being's invading a planet, it wants to turn off all the points of empowerment or steal the generators and then start dominating the planet and then incurring. So it'll go after the magic and eat all that up, and then kind of like King of the Hill, only have all the magic for itself, these type of predators. So so a lot of those witches and wizards immigrated into these magic realms. The ones I was reading that interacted with the realm that will be currently, we'll just call it Oz because it's popular culture. It didn't have them before. They immigrated there from another magic realm, so they were like leaping through magic realms as they were getting invaded. But now they're comfortable. Quite a few of them are comfortably living there. I'm allowed to say over 100, but it's more than that. I'm allowed to say over 30 more witches there. And there's like a lineage of there, and they're overpowered. Over 100 witches, over 30 wizards. So there's a little less there. I was reading there's a few evil ones, but like it was mostly positive. I read they came from Magic Realm, and Oz, it wasn't exactly as magical as the other realms. It had more of a chaos energy type of thing. And the witches and wizards were going there because they can make magic out of chaos fairly easily. It's like a chaos and order energy is like a field of, it has a lot of things in it, and you can if you know how to do like chaos magic and stuff, you can turn chaos into magic or other things and affect probabilities, kind of like they soft disclosed with Marvel with the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. Okay. So as you were talking about these different things, I was smiling because I want to play a little cartoon about like how do like witches and wizards meet people to go on dates, and could there be a Tinder for Oz? So we'll play this video. It's only about like a minute, but I hope we don't. If we get taken down for it, we'll come right back again. But this is a lot of fun. So let's watch this.
Miriam, over here! You must see this incredible app I've downloaded.
What is it, Joanna? What is that?
It's called Tinder, and it lets you go on dates. Remember those?
What happened to a good old-fashioned kidnapping?
You don't have to do that anymore. The app.
Very modern.
The app up, Miriam.
Right. How does it work, Joanna?
First, you upload pictures of yourself into the application. I'm obviously going to use the young pictures.
Isn't that a little
I
deceitful?
think we just went down.
No, you just
Hey,
down a
Heather,
little youth potion before you go on
can
the
stop
date.
it. What we'll do is we'll put the link to this. Of course.
Did we just go taken down?
Yeah, we got taken down.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah. I guess we got to be really careful. In the future, I'll reference it. Yeah, so people can kind of tell.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. We'll put the link in. Oh man. So are we still back up?
Let's see. Heather, are we back up yet? Oh, she says I didn't think we're down. Okay.
Oh, we aren't down?
Well, we'll tell you what. We'll put to make sure we don't stay down. We'll put the link to that video, which is fun. It's like about a minute.
You want to just replay it and see if because I think you got that from the comments, right? Somebody said it was down. Okay, I don't see it down. So yeah, go ahead. So Heather, go ahead and play it.
Joanna, listen. My sister told me she dropped the take of the century on me. She said the youth potions might be a little problematic.
Problematic?
Immoral, even.
In what way?
I mean, they are the primary ingredient is the blood of children.
They have a lot of blood, Miriam. What are they going to do with all of that blood? Might as well spare some for me. If I were a child, Miriam, and a nice green old woman came up to me and was like, "Hello, child, I'm going on a date later, and my date expects me to look younger. Can I have some of your blood?" Do you know what I do, Miriam? I give her the blood. She needs it.
Okay. So now, I think it's.
Yeah, we're in context, right?
Yeah. So anyway, so Sean, I heard that you went on a Tinder date.
Yeah. We met up. In Oz, and it's been love at first sight. As you know, my favorite color is green. I'm very attracted to Magick, and then she knows how to cook, and it just wins, my heart. So don't judge. Love is love, and she may be a little scary or evil, but as they often say, I can change her. I'm the antidote. I am an antidote for evil, so we'll see what we can do.
Well, I'm very happy for you too, and I hope things continue to work out well. But by the way,
Tinder, it was.
I didn't say this yet, but we on that Tinder app, we both put up these. We were at the Oz Museum. We put up these videos of us serenading. You know the basket that the great and powerful Oz floated off in at the very end of the movie with the balloon. Well, they had these baskets at the Oz Museum, and we uploaded these serenades that we did to our Tinder account for Oz, and maybe we could play those. Maybe you could play mine first, and then we'll play Sean's. See how Sean got that date.
Over the rainbow, bluebirds sing.
And then Sean, you
Where over the rainbow, way up high, blue skies.
I don't remember the lyrics.
see that was it, Sean. That's how you won her affection. She saw you serenade like that, and
Same with you. I was just gonna say with your date.
I did get a date. Yeah, let's look at the next slide. You'll see my date. Oh, Glenda. Oh, she was great. She was so good.
Slay queen.
What's that? What kind of
Slay queen?
Slay queen?
Yeah, it's a catchphrase. People now say like, "You go, girl," like slay queen.
Oh, I haven't. See, I'm behind the times. I haven't heard of that, but yeah, she was like, maybe she was too good. I'm not sure if it's going to work out because she was like really, really good, and everything was positive all the
Very
time.
good at a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Oz Tinder app actually works. We had a blast, and I don't think my relationship with her is going to last as long as yours, but we'll see.
Well, she she knows how to do things that others can't. So, yeah.
And she cooks really well.
Yeah.
Really good cook. So yeah, checked off a lot of boxes. So
Yeah, just put those up as a new like profile for it, like if like Extradimensional Witch from Oz, like Black Lives Matter and the other little sections on the app.
Exactly. All right, moving right along. What's our next slide? Oh yeah, this was crazy. I made there's a whole section about an update for Gus Grissom. So a lot of people that watch my videos, or either otherwise, you've known about astronaut Virgil Gus Grissom. And I had a really, really strange experience. Probably a week or two before we left on the trip, where I was talking to a local historian for the St. John, Kansas area. And this woman had wrote a book about St. John, which is really fascinating, about the history of the pioneers and the history of the whole town, how a tornado has never touched down, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm talking to her on the phone. I got her phone number. I'm talking to her on her phone, getting more information about the town. And her husband jumps on the line. And her husband says to me right out of the blue, "Have you ever heard of Virgil Gus Grissom?" And I'm like, "As a matter of fact, I may have." I'm like, "Why do you bring that up?" And he's like, "Well, if you come to Kansas, you have to go to the Cosmosphere Museum in Hutchinson, Kansas." And I'm like, "Why would I want to go to the Cosmosphere Museum?" And he said that they had recovered the capsule, Liberty Bell. It's called the Liberty Bell, that Gus Grissom did his first orbital flight in. There's a whole, like, I made a video about it. It's actually very famous, but basically that the hatch of the capsule blew off prematurely. Initially, they blamed it on Gus. They said that he got afraid and he pressed the button and the hatch blew off. And Gus is like, "No, of course not. I would never do that." So anyway, the hatch blew off. Water started seeping into the capsule. And then Gus was realizing what was happening. That capsule was about to go down. Meanwhile, there are helicopters overhead getting ready to attach to it. So basically, Gus got himself out of the capsule as quickly as he could. He's treading water. There's a helicopter above him that's trying to pull the capsule up, but the capsule's filling up with even more water. The engines, the helicopter operator starts getting these alerts on the capsule that the engines are going to overheat in the helicopter. So they have to cut the ties. The capsule sinks to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, like 3 or 4 miles down, like it was lost. Meanwhile, Gus's astronaut suit is filling with water, and he could barely keep himself above water. So he's treading water. Finally, he gets rescued. So to me, like when I was creating those videos and I was doing research on it, they never found the Liberty Bell was never recovered. So it's very fascinating that for me, it's a Mandela effect that the Liberty Bell was recovered. And this woman's husband says at the Cosmosphere, they're the ones that led the expedition to recover the capsule, bring it back to the surface, clean it up, and they have it on display there. And usually it's all over the country. Like different parts of the country will, like different museums related to aeronautics will display it. And it just so happened that it was there in Hutchinson. It's usually not there all the time. So he's like, if you go to, if you come to Kansas, you have to go visit the Cosmosphere Museum and see Gus Grissom's the Liberty Bell 7. So I was like, this is a pretty important synchronicity. So when these things happen, I'm like, I'm right there. I jump on it. So we included that as part of the trip. And it was really, really fascinating. We have a couple of B-rolls, but if you want to say something, Sean?
Yeah, because we didn't go quite into like why we showed witches on Tinder. Did you want to go into that?
Oh, okay.
Just like leave that. It's like,
I'm sorry. I got all confused. I thought we got that down. But yeah, go. You can add something to that, and then we'll continue this. Sure.
Yeah, are you
Florida.
able to go back to the other slide? And yeah, that's good. I definitely want to hear that. Talk about your date.
We could talk about it. Let's put your date on the slide. Let's put your date on the screen as
Well,
we talk about it.
well, can you bring up the other slide with the lions and the other?
Oh, okay.
My tigers, oh my, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, did you want to say anything on like why you wanted to do the witches on Tinder?
Why I wanted to do it?
Yeah, yeah.
I can't refresh my memory.
Like there's some activity in the realm of Oz. I think we're gonna talk about.
Okay, as far as like
news.
looking for humans, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, like the news that was going on there.
Having children?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Can you like go into a little bit of that? I'll add to it.
Well, basically, I mentioned a little bit about this before, but basically that, to have children, it usually doesn't like witches and wizards don't interbreed with each other. Like it doesn't usually work out. But
yeah, it doesn't work anymore. Their fertility isn't working as much.
yeah, so the thing is to find a human to breed with.
Yeah, we have like a weird life finds a way type of thing with like in Jurassic Park.
Okay.
With our fertility, which against a lot of odds and toxins and poisons, we're able to like resiliently thrive because there's a lot of things backing this DNA lineage to grow and get stronger despite all any depopulation genos, all that. We still has the ability genetically to overcome a lot of things and blocks and reverse infertility. So we have an antidote for the witches and wizards. So they have taken note of that, and whatever age they're at, they're getting interested. So now they're using the Tinder to pick up some young men. Do you want to like talk about their vehicle, how they pick up the men?
No, I'm not. Why don't you fill in the blanks for that? Oh, the tornado technology.
Yep.
The vortex. Yeah, and actually in these episodes of Symphony of Realities that I made, I get into that a little bit as far as like, how do vortexes work? Can vortexes act like a Stargate or a portal into another dimension type of a thing? So, and I know we were reading into some things too, where in total, there was like 10 people since the time of Frank Baum, I think, 10 humans that actually had journeyed to Oz, or maybe it was 11 and one decided to come back and the other 10 have actually stayed there.
Yes.
Yeah. But what do you want to add to that, Sean?
Yeah, I was reading that too. And you were reading in, you had some interesting things with it. Yeah, like I've also read like hurricanes have the ability to make a link of a portal back and forth in time and bring species back in the timeline that from old oceans were that were filled with different species and fish life. They had those hurricanes linking to a hurricane in the future and then bleeding it over, refueling the oceans with different types of fish, and then somehow magically Mandela affecting back or whatever. So with tornadoes, there seems to be a big a secret to vortex tech that can open portals. Depending on the user, it doesn't appear to happen with all of it's like less than 1% of tornadoes. So I don't recommend just going into a tornado expecting to end up to another realm, though sometimes magic things happen. Like a baby was picked up by a tornado, I remember this, and then you gently put down in an area in a field or something. And so there's a certain percentage of how likely you're going to die in the tornado versus not. And you probably influence that with magic and get the tornado to like you, or the wind elementals or whatever that's influencing it. But certain percentage have interacted with the portal and are bringing people to another realm. And yeah, they're quite hot commodities. They're the humans
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you wonder about that too when and we've had a lot of tornado outbreaks, and I think that's only going to continue. But yeah, you wonder about that too when they're like missing people. Like sometimes people aren't found. Where did they go? Is it something happened where the body just not able to be found, or did they actually go into another realm? Not necessarily Oz, but another realm that tornado was vortexing into.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Yeah, there's movies that soft scores. Somebody just mentioned in the comments movie Final Countdown. I have not seen that, but I'll look into that. Somebody said raining frogs. Yeah, like where all these like animals that start showering down weirdly that people like, oh, it's the plague or it's the coming or whatever the apocalypse. And there's some interesting explanations for it, especially if it's a weird species that's never been seen before or in a while, maybe in the fossil records, and then that'd be way better evidence. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I think as time goes on, like the whole title of this series is called Symphony of Realities, Symphony of Realms, and how they're all interacting with each other. These are things that we're beginning to understand, like more and more, bringing into our consciousness how the realms work with each other.
Do you have a map of the picture I took of Oz, by the way?
I probably do.
No, I might be able to find it and then text it to you. But yeah, and just like there's a lot of updates because before we interacted with the portal, I was getting no data. I wasn't able to look into it. I wasn't able to immigrate to this realm, and no matter what I tried, like looking into it. So as soon as we opened the portal, and it took a fair amount of days, it didn't just open to it because I had to like gain their trust, the TSA security, clear things up, make sure nothing gets through or hitchhikes with me and all this other stuff, spiritually crossing over. And as I got into it, I was able to like branch back between, expand throughout the realm, scan everything, go look throughout the timeline. And then I got a whole bunch of data on the Akashic record of what went on in the history, and then looking for choice points and chess moves throughout time for what would happen in the realm. There was quite a bit of drama. There was more before, it seemed, and there seemed to be some interactions between everyone that was involved in seeing the Oz mythos that would influence this realm before it got cut off anyway. That was making some changes, positive changes. There seemed to be more evil before that, and the evil got hushed out somehow. So I think some people did some good things while they were interacting with the mythos spiritually. So there's less witches, evil witches. The species, I wouldn't say everything in the movie is or the show books are accurate at all. Some of the things are imaginative and made up in some ways, but there's a certain percentage that is accurate. I was reading into things like there were witches and wizards there that immigrated from another magic realm. There seemed to be dwarves. I didn't see munchkins, but I saw dwarves.
Right.
I saw some different types of dragons and sea dragons. I did see humanoid lion people, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Giant birds that could shapeshift, and some tree people, and like a few shape-shifting wolf people. And those are the notable stuff. But there's a bunch of different flora and fauna and things that were generating the magic and chaos in the realm. And it's not when I say chaos, it's not negative necessarily. There's like different forms of chaos. It could be like very destructive chaos, but it could be like also freedom chaos, which is like more of what it was going into. Yeah, and yeah, they're looking for some. Yeah, they're looking on Tinder. There's quite some single witches, but. And then I got to like read into like where's the magic realm they came from, and some interesting mythos with that. it went into giant. I was seeing a consistency from different magic realms of what are the things that generates the magic. A lot of the realms that had giant trees, like the world trees, they seem to be big energy generators for magic. I was reading, and I was seeing that in some of the realms too.
Yeah, those giant trees. That's a whole other topic.
We're not covering that today. We're covering that.
No, we're not going to cover that today, but I figured those type of things we're going to cover when I release the video that I did about Oz and so forth, and we can get more into that, including the Mandela effects. You know, there's Mandela effects about the actual movie. There's so many about the Wizard of Oz. It's kind of off the charts. And then you read into, we won't talk about this now because this is a whole other topic, but how the Wicked Witch was, everyone remembers her saying to the flying monkeys, like, "Fly, my pretties, fly." And now in this timeline, she just says, "Fly, fly, fly, fly." So, and what the meaning is of that, and what that. So, there's a lot of cool stuff. We're gonna touch on that a little bit more in another episode.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So, do you feel okay right now? Go back to Gus.
Sure. Go
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So, blah blah blah. Let's play. There's a B-roll. I don't think it matters which one. Maybe there's only one. Oh yeah. So this is his capsule. Now, when I was looking at that capsule, how did that guy fit in there? Like, it is so tight. They say that you didn't you actually wore the capsule. You didn't actually fit into it. That's how tight it was. It was really, really interesting. And it's also interesting that you don't even have to pay to see the capsule. As soon as you walk in the doors of the Cosmosphere, it's like right there. And I thought that was great. And there's Gus. So the museum really has a nice tribute. And here's another thing about Gus Grissom. It's funny, when you walk into this section of the museum, the first thing you see is a giant Nazi flag, which I thought was very interesting. NASA, Nazis, Project Paperclip, all those stuff. You see the connection everywhere, but I'm like, really? I got to look at a giant Nazi flag as soon as I walk in. I pay my fee. I got to see a giant Nazi flag. So, yeah, and I talk about a lot of these different things. When people see that particular segment I did on an update on Topsy the Elephant and Gus Grissom, a lot of this will be making sense. Now, I think there's just a little bit more of this, but when we go back to the slide, one of the things I'm just going to mention here, I'm not going to go into details, but there was a gift from Gus that I received when we went there, and it was something that he had hidden, so to speak, in another layer of reality that was there in that capsule, and that capsule resonated with his energy. It was and it makes sense too, because not only was he in that capsule for so long, but he rode it out to the edge of space and then back down again. So that made a lot of sense. And there was a special gift that Gus gave me in the unseen, and I'll disclose what that is when we get to that, when I release that section for flipping the chessboard. Was there anything you wanted to mention about Gus or your experience at the Cosmosphere?
I definitely could tell the presence when they were giving us nudges to look into stuff, and yeah, it seemed like there was a bunch of soul shards and codes in the material, so it was good to go through the remnants of the history of it, and it's a good museum for learning how human engineering can make a big stride, even if it's different factions, and the secret compartmentalized factions aren't all sharing knowledge with each other. No matter what, we can strive to get there.
Yeah, a lot of it had to do too with the Soviets. So part of the history of the space program was starting with Nazi Germany and United States NASA, and its conflict with the Russia, USSR. So all those types of things are explored and talked about, and they have a planetarium there as well. So it's a nice little day trip for the family, without a doubt. Okay, so let's go. Wait, Okay, yeah, let's go on to the next slide. All right, so this is interesting. Hot Springs, Arkansas, of all places. So what we had planned to do was when we were leaving the Kansas area, we were going to go to Colorado, right? We were going to go to the hot springs they have up there, and all of a sudden they had these crazy like wildfires. They had a blizzard and then wildfires, and all these things are happening to make it almost really difficult to get up into that area, especially around Denver. So what was plan B? I kept on getting the message to go to Hot Springs, Arkansas. I'm like, okay, Kansas first, Hot Springs second. Doesn't make any sense. But we went and we had a really amazing time there. I learned a lot about hot springs I never knew about before, but its claim to fame is the healing water, and it gained a lot of popularity in the 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s. People came from miles around to bathe in the healing waters, and that included everyone from Al Capone to JFK spent time there in hot springs. I hear that you can make really good moonshine with with that particular water. Um, the heat of the water is 140 degrees, and there is a video clip that we can play of when we were there, of one of the hot springs near the center of town. Yeah, you can see like, and like if you look on the sides of mountains and everything, you can see there's springs everywhere, like water's coming out. You can see the steam everywhere. It's really quite amazing.
And I love hot springs. One of my favorite healing places to go. Place of power, deep stuff with it. Each of it. Yeah, I definitely wanted to make it where the trip had a hot springs for sure, and make the trip no matter what. But yeah, like we were like traveling for what, around a week or 2 weeks, and yeah, there was no wildfire before, and then all of a sudden a wildfire happened on our the west, blizzard on the east, tornadoes to the south. There was a bunch going on. Yeah, it felt like I guess we gotta go the other way, and then because they're right where we're gonna go in Colorado. This is like shit. But yeah, this place was amazing. The place power there had a lot of youthfulness. It had a technology to extend life. Arkansas has a lot of secrets to it. It was like Native American stuff, stuff with the name and where that comes from too, and it seems to be, if people want to go there, what you'd be getting an upgrade if you trade with Arkansas would be, it seems to be a big vault of sacred spiritual technology, like items, artifacts, objects of power. It's like a big vault of those, and you could train to gain a bilocated version of each one of the things that Arkansas earned, so you could like interact with it. It's kind of like the Hindu gods, where you can train to have like thousands of arms, and each of the arms hold a different type of technology, and be able to do something around the planet depending on what the object's good at. Healing, offense, defense, protection, remedy, psychic surgery, things for reality support, generators, all kinds of stuff. You could train to hold up a lot and interact with all the objects in that advanced manager technology. And it had a lot of very powerful Dantean activations in hot springs. The hot springs place power, the spirits there alone will amplify the shit out of your Dante. And I will not say how, it's a secret, but yeah, go there if you want your Dantean upgraded.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Even like how the water gets heated. So my first thought is like, it's got to be volcanic activity. Like, how else is the water going to be heated? Like, that's how other hot springs work. But according to the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, there's no volcanic activity at all, but the water comes from a source so deep in the ground that's a very superheated area. And then through the fissures of the rocks, it shoots up so fast that it keeps a lot of the heat that it had from below. And that reminded me of something that you discovered called primary water. And I had never heard of what primary water was. And I thought that was really for both of us, I think that's a Mandela effect. But you want to share what primary, and some people might know what primary water is, but do you want to share like what your take is on primary water?
Sure. There's like a little hidden rabbit hole of truth and conspiracy around it, because it appears that water is way more abundant than we have been told. If you dig down far enough, pretty much almost anywhere, there's a layer of water that is very pure, and there's some interesting things to in physics of how that happens that I'm not too much of an expert on, but it appears like people that have dug down to this level and struck this start making businesses off of it, or like Libya tried doing this for a while, and then the governments came in and stopped it and shut it down. So it appears there's a little bit of a suppression on the information of primary water, so that a layer of the reality of scarcity of the mainstream global narrative continues for both water, oil, and a lot of other things, which doesn't seem to be as true. Because if we find out that these things are way more abundant and self-replenishing, they can't make as much money off of it, and strive to pit everyone against each other, cause strife and poverty, and control more people. So all those movies where you've been told like, oh no, we're going to run out of water, or it's going to be unfiltered or radioactive or dry up, or that all depends on if we invest in desaltination plant. I forget what it's called. It's like turning salt water into fresh water, which have been messed with and limited by government. So it doesn't seem like they don't care that much about it, as well as interacting with primary water. All those movies, like there's one called Tank Girl and some other things where there's like, oh, apocalyptic future where water runs out and we're all like warring against the water that's remaining. Those start to fade out of existence as a potential when we know about this concept. So through ignorance.
And I thought it was really interesting, like you mentioned Libya, because what Libya was going to do is they were going to create these really deep wells to irrigate the desert, so to speak. So they had all these big drilling vehicles that would go down and dig really deep. And I think it was under the Clinton administration. They said that they were missile launchers. And so they just bombed all of it. So it's like, you see how people try to like suppress this type of information. So it's really something. I'm not sure if the water in Arkansas is considered primary, but that whole concept and how pure and programmable it is really something to pay attention to. Like, how much could that help a person to have that inside your body? Because we're mostly water. And that's also a Mandela effect. I remember always being taught that we were at least 90% water. And I think now we're like 65 or 70% water. But yeah, just like water's programmable, we're kind of programmable too. And yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to have that purity sounds like it would be something that'd be super healthy.
And there's so much about like the basics of things that we don't know. It's crazy. Like how many people know this full science about water? Almost nobody. And there's also an infinite layer of continuing to grow what is water exactly, as well as fire. People barely know what fire is to begin with. So like people like claim they know things through science. Science just observes what they're allowed to they're able to observe at the moment. And there's experiments that will be crazy with water, like Miyamoto has gone into, or Victor Schauberger, or like people that have made very fuel efficient turning like water combustion engines, things that have been suppressed by the government and put on shelves. People silenced or threatened to stop the information coming out what can happen through water. If there's frequencies you can pump through water that will get the water to boil and start to turn up heat. There's weird things you can do that isn't really understood by science purposely, suppress it because bions is an interesting topic of if you put like the Schumann resonance in water, it starts self-generating. If you like seal it and you purify it of all contaminants and get rid of all that, it starts making these little spherical moving energetic structures called bions that then start to form bacteria. So it's like the earth generates life. There's a bunch of secrets, and the fourth phase of water, oh my God, you can bring more mass out of a plane of reality if you get it at the right temperature and how clouds work. My God. And like all life mostly requires water and all these different forms of liquid and alchemy. And my God, the water portal technology, energetics, living water, energetic water. This goes on.
And by the way, if anyone does go to hot springs or people that like live in the area that are familiar with it, you don't like people used to actually go in the spring, right? Now they don't allow that anymore. Instead, they have like all the hotels in your bathroom, in the bathtub, they actually have a direct connection. And so you can fill your bathtub up with the water. You have to let it cool because it's 140 degrees. So you have to like fill up your bathtub, usually wait an hour or so before you can get inside of it. But that's actually how you can experience it there. And also drinking it. At the hotel that we stayed at, what they would do is they would create, put the water in bottles, let it cool off. And then they would put that in your room. So you would actually be able to drink it. So you could actually take a bath and drink it and really be submerged in that special water that they have in that area. So anything else before we go on to, I think this is our last slide, but do you have any other comments before we leave Arkansas?
Al Capone is definitely spiritually active there.
Oh yeah.
There's a museum there or something. We didn't get to go, unfortunately, but yeah, he seemed to be interacting with us. I don't know everything about him, but I wouldn't say he's just exactly evil or anything. But he did kill people. But when the war on alcohol is exactly, I mean, who would have made the biggest impact to stopping the timeline where alcohol remains illegal?
Exactly.
Like if you like permeate that, it's like a layer of who opened the gates up for more freedom against tyrannical governments. But and somebody mentioned, somebody mentioned the comment. I thought that was interesting. Do y'all look at the sky and see little dots moving around? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I call that sparkle vision.
Yeah.
And now not only do I see it like in the sky, and usually in the evening, I can see like even now I'm looking around my office and I can see everything almost like pixelated. And it usually starts to happen when the sun goes down for some reason. So yeah, it has to do with the rising frequencies and us being able to start to see past the hologram and start to see more into the unseen. And I think as time goes on and not much further into the future, there's going to be a lot of other things like that. Or looking at the sun and seeing like rainbows around it, all the different colors, or the sun morphs into another color. You see a lot of violets and that type of thing. So that's, yeah, absolutely. So that was thanks for posting that comment on there.
And yeah, with that, what that is, and I'd like to add onto what you say, which is a layer, absolutely. There will be multiple things that people see. People have different eye vision, and abilities they've inherited. Mine, what I've tuned into it, like if you like have a sunny blue sky day out kind of thing, and then you just daydream and look at a specific spot for a while, like looking at the sky, you'll notice like these streams of light. I'll notice it as like a whitish ball that kind of like rotates in some interesting sporadic pattern, and they're all these like jiggling like molecules that will kind of do that, and some will act in erratic patterns, have a specific purpose of like direction they're going in, or like be all over the place. Sometimes they're in different colors, and it sometimes looks like an actual thing that's flying through the sky. This will be multiple things. Some of it will be like elementals consciousness, like that permeate the reality. They're pretty much everywhere, and you can interact with them. You can communicate with them if they'll take note of you. Some will just be about their day, and people want to explain this away with like those floaters in the eyes. It doesn't exactly work like that, though. That's a thing too.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to determine the difference between those and that if the position of your eye and the motion and like how fluids in your eyes kind of stream down, and the spots that follow that will be the floaters versus the ones that go in erratic directions that don't apply to like how gravity with the eye fluid works, or be moving with when your eye's not moving, or moving in the opposite direction, that you flick your eye in different and they can communicate with you. There's DNA lineages that are really good and synced up with interacting with these, and there's way more based on different layers of perception that you're tuning into, such as astral or other dimensions, all that.
Exactly. Yes, I know a lot of people have been telling me they're seeing floaters in their vision, and they're worried, like, oh my God, I have to go to the doctor. What's happening with my vision, etc.
Absolutely, you're gonna die.
I'm sure the doctor will help you. But
sometimes go ahead.
I was going to say, like, to me, a lot of it is the breaking down of the veils, like the lifting of the veils, so to speak. And as the earth keeps vibrating higher and higher and higher, like, don't be surprised if you start to see things like that in a higher frequency, that these things have always been there. Just don't let them like frighten you, because they've always been there, and they're at another frequency where they're not going to be able to hurt you or interact with you in a certain way. But all these, like, keep all the stuff on the table as far as what's going to be happening in the very near future.
Absolutely. And sometimes if you start communicating with them, they'll react to you. Sometimes they won't, or there'll be some that react, and some will just be going throughout the day because they kind of like have a thing to do, kind of like walking across people in the street in New York. That someone won't stop for you or say hello, even if you say hello. It's weird. But
New Yorkers.
I've noticed when I do like big charging ceremonies, like with Qigong, where I build a whole bunch of energy, and you create a big environmental bubble that is a high amount of density of light, they will react and start coming in more frequently and vibrating at higher rates, and kind of interact with you more when you're like a walking, talking place of power.
Yeah, and you'll be able to, at some point, they'll be like, "Well, you can see us," and so they'll be able to like communicate with you as well. So besides the visual, you'll have like thoughts or the auditory come into your brain. So yeah, all those things, like, people should keep on the lookout for that. Definitely.
And if people have like floaters in their eyes, usually it's not particularly anything to be concerned about. If you get like white threads in your eyes, that might mean candida, which would be concerning because candida can lead to cancer. Albicans is like one of the forms of cancer, that like parasitic fungus that takes over cells, and it's like one of the conspiracies that covers up one of the causes of cancer. If you look into the documentary called "Cancer is a Fungus," by one of the leading scientists that discovered all about cancer. Anyway, but there's other causes like cells programmed to replicate infinitely, radiation, some weird pathogens and carcinogens that program the body to have that effect, which is not fun.
Okay. You know what we're going to do, because we only have 15 minutes left. We're going to go, we talked about New York, so we're going to go on to our next slide about New York. So this is part of the, again, for the Kansas birthday trip. On the way home, because Connecticut is next to New York, we decided to stop in New York City to visit Cleopatra's Needle. And this is a place that has like struck my interest for a long time, because I had no idea that Cleopatra's Needle obelisk was in New York City. Actually, there's two of them. They were originally in Alexandria. There's one in New York City, is the one we visited, and its twin is in London near the Golden Jubilee Bridges. It is the oldest man-made object in New York City. It was originally made in Heliopolis, and then they were brought to Alexandria, and they stayed there for at least 2,000 years. and there's hieroglyphs on all the different sides of the obelisk. And about, I think it was 4 years ago, they did this thing where they, because it was the hieroglyphs were wearing down, they actually did some laser work to make the hieroglyphs stand out a little bit more. The hieroglyphs mention the gods Ra, it mentions Horus, it mentions Ramses the Great. And when you go there, they have these plaques on all the different sides of the obelisk where they interpret what the hieroglyphs say. And it's actually reading a spell. So there's a little section of video I want to play, but Sean, do you want to mention anything about the obelisk and our trip into New York to see them?
I don't know what you're gonna bring up, but yeah, it was pretty magical. There's a lot going on. It's like we had to be kind of like camouflaged because there's a lot of big predators in New York that are trying to dominate the city and harvest energy off of people and affect their dreams and all this kind of stuff. So there's things that are trying to dominate that too, and they're pretty big. So we had to be careful with that. So yeah, be careful with these big places of power if you ever want to activate them. This one's a little less of a dramatic territory, but the others around the planet, yeah, they'll usually be dramatic. The spell was interesting, empowering. You could communicate with like Ra and Horus through that, and could activate some stuff. It affects any territory around. It has a large amount of authority. There's other things we can talk about, but go ahead.
Yeah, so let's actually play the video clip of me actually reading one of the signs of the hieroglyphs.
Today is January 5th, 2022, and we finally made it to the famous obelisk in Central Park, Cleopatra's Needle. And I'm going to read to you what it says here. The Horus, strong bull, beloved of Ra, the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. User Mat Ra, chosen of Ra. Ra, created by the gods, who founded the two lands. The son of Ra, Ramses, beloved of Amun. There is no one who did what he did in the house of his father. The Lord of the two lands, User Mat Ra, chosen of Ra, the son of Ra, Ramses, beloved of Amun, granted life like Ra. The Horus, strong bull, appearing in Thebes, the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. Men, Keper, Ra, who embellishes the house of him who created him. The son of Ra, Thutmose, beloved of Atmun, lord of Heliopolis. May he live forever. The Horus, strong bull, son of Ra, the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. User Mat Ra, chosen of Ra, the golden Horus, mighty in years and great of victories. The son of Ra, Ramses, beloved of Amun. The lord of the two lands, User Mat Ra, chosen of Ra, the son of Ra, Ramses, beloved of Amun.
This is Cleopatra's Needle.
I think the video is going to stop there. Yeah. So, and then I went around and read all the other signs too. But it was like that was like a great way to end the trip. Like I could feel the power from that obelisk and the place of power it was put over. And then we did our work there, and then we got attention from something. Sean, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Do you have any clips for that in magician's thing?
I don't.
Right.
And I knew like if I played something like from the Magicians,
Yeah, it'll get flagged.
yeah, definitely would get flagged. But we could probably find something and put it in the comments below.
All right, yeah. So,
or people know about Harry Potter. They know that concept.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's like this. Yeah, Harry Potter, and if you watch the show Magicians, there's I tuned into this a while ago. There's a bunch of these in different places, and they're very secluded to themselves, and camouflaged, and they get aggressive if you try to breach the camouflage. So don't recommend it. If you, depending on the factions, I've been contacted by a few different ones, and some when I early on in age, when I was admitting who I am after the age of innocence, which is like age 9, and you get the burden of the who you are from past lives and spiritual entourage that would protect you during your childhood. You're like, all right, here's all your stuff back. Here's your responsibility. Take it up. And then you start like downloading and integrating that, and then making a chess move of who you're going to be, and reconnecting with soul family past like witness protection of the amnesia barrier. There's a bunch of predators that are trying to hunt down who people are to try to counter chess move them on the planet from taking back the planet for the light. So there's some ancient mystery schools that were formed in way ancient civilizations of the past, and immigrations of different species, like the extradimensional wizards and witches that have a chess move in this realm. Some of them have gotten together and formed groups, councils, guilds of this one. Like when I was like translating what they call themselves, they interact with names that are old but like translated into English, like a guild of sorcerers, or they take some symbology with dragons. This one specifically. There are other ones in different places. This seemed to be a group that was influencing and looking for members throughout the timeline to empower with magic, and then change the timeline for the better, and add into what can be expressed, taught, learned in new forms of magic. It seems to be more of an advance than what people will have in the mainstream public. But if you look into the soft disclosure of like Diagon Alley and the bricks, like Hagrid like touches a brick and then they all form away, and then there's like a pocket dimension held within that's like camouflage, or
the train ride into like when they
9 3/4. Yeah, there'd be a secret place for that. There, in the Magicians series, there's a college that is in New York, and is secretly held in a pocket dimension that doesn't allow anyone in unless they're allowed to, and can open up gateways in different parts of the city to let people in or out. It's something similar to that, and like how it works and all. When I first was tuning into each one, they each have different stuff with how they set up a tech like that, and they're not really allowing anyone to see how it works and all that as like a form of protection around themselves in the timeline. This one seemed very powerful. I was getting, besides like us going to the needle, I was getting there was a way to contact them if we went to the right spot in New York, and it had to do with the garden.
Central Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say exactly where, because then people can have a fun game with it. And also, it doesn't want me. They don't want me to just tell everyone. But you can find a place in there that has like a magic place of power, and that's interacting with the whole Central Park, and is trading magic with different people that are approved. And you can make an impact, or leave your spiritual calling card, or get attention of them, especially if you have like a presence or effect to the park that can make the park better, then they can get impressed with that, and then they'll contact you. And then we started getting messages about it from them. It took a while. It actually took a few weeks of resolving the area, because the magic was pretty much shut down mostly in the area. So we had to do quite a bit and it was mostly stopping all these predators that would steal energy from the park from New York and the surrounding area. And we had to help make it so that it was strong enough to stop all that, to where it could turn on the generator and then be powerful enough. And it's similar to like plummet. In the show Magicians, they have like a soft disclosure concept for place of power of magic, for like plumbing and like turning it on and off, and like systems of flow of magic. And that's pretty interesting. And it's similar to that, but its physics works a little differently. But it does have a flow from the center of the earth, and power points, and when those things get shut down or abundant, and they can be made more abundant and flowing depending on who's attached to them and drawing from them and all that. So we turned that on, we got their attention, and then started interacting with it. And I was like, maybe this will work, maybe it won't. After a few weeks of getting that to work, they contacted us through I had a bit through dreams. I was like dreaming about some magic schools and libraries and stuff. They were contacting us through this. You want to talk about the clock?
Yeah, so it's this huge clock that I have in my office at my house, and Sean was up there with me, and we were talking about things, and all of a sudden the clock has no electricity, like there's no battery. I haven't used it. It's there for decoration basically, and all of a sudden we start hearing like something's tapping on the clock. And isn't that funny? It's clock, time travel. So yeah, we were starting to, that got our attention, and we were starting to get messages, and one thing led to another with being accepted into the school and going through that process. And it was really, it's funny how one thing leads to another, which leads to another. For this whole birthday thing, driving to Kansas in the middle of the winter, with all the stuff going on in the world. But when you make that, my point is, when you make the effort to do something like that, you never know what's going to come back in return. And like Sean was saying, start small. Like, don't do the big stuff first, because that could really be damaging to you. But when you start small, you start building up, and you can start doing more and more different things. And I'm going to say that today we have a hard stop at my time, 6:30 Eastern time. So Sean, I'm going to turn this over to you if you want to talk for another minute or so, and then we'll be ending this podcast.
Yeah, I found the clip. If I'm going to put it in the chat. So Heather, if you're able to bring this up and play that, that's like him finding out about break bills. There's a lot we can talk about.
I know there's a lot, and then time is not on our side.
We don't
has to leave.
If people want us to talk about the New York break bill thing, soft disclosure more, let us know in the comments and elsewise, and I can help like ambassador introduce if people are interested in that. But they're looking for high potential magic users. So if you're interacting with that, and then you make your presence known, we can go into that. Heather, are you able to bring that clip up at all?
Here we go.
You make full screen.
I don't hear any volume.
Yeah.
Well, we can put the link to this below.
And then the elevator also changes.
Right.
So like that in Central Park.
Quentin Coldwater? Uh-huh. I'm Elliot. You're late. Follow me. Okay. Hey, where am I? Upstate New York. Upstate, but I wish just... Hey, okay, what is this place?
Rake Bills University. You've been offered a preliminary exam for entry into the graduate program.
Am I hallucinating?
If you were, how would asking me help? Come on, or you'll miss it.
Magick.
Yeah, that was a fun show.
Yeah. So there seem to be things like that. They mostly be interacting with temporal dilation, so you get to tune into the information. There's like rules in this reality of how it reads over, but they'll essentially be made and alter in a version of you, like a part of you that remembers everything in the interacting when you're visited for that. And yeah, there'll be like a bunch of the first interactions we had with it were like constantly figuring out what kind of magic user you are, what you're oriented in, DNA lineage, what you're good at, and then like there's tests and basics for that, and then they build up class for it.
All right, so this is something we could talk more about in the future. Sean, I want to thank you for another episode of Symphony of Realities. I think that we've expanded some people's consciousness a little bit more. Some people would have been like, oh, I knew that already, but that's good. But I'm sure there's some new things people learned, and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. What's worth the reality if you don't have fun? Enjoy it. Never be bored again.
That's what these realities are supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun and adventure and learning. And yes, all of the above. Absolutely. So until next time. Go ahead.
What? Here, go ahead and plug like what you're looking for in business and stuff, and also plug your stuff for Quantum Businessman.
Yeah. So for business, like one of the things that we're looking for is programmers. It seems that in this particular market, it's actually very difficult to find programmers. Ideally, Connecticut is the best, but really worldwide actually works as well. People that can create mobile applications, and also too the main product that we use, the main programming language that we use in my company, is something called Delphi, which is made by another company called Embarcadero. Delphi, like Greek type thing, and a lot of success with that. So if you know Delphi, that's a big plus. And yes, that's the main thing that we're looking for right now. People that also are knowledgeable about cryptocurrencies is also something else that we're looking for. And that's what I would want to say for now. And then I hope to be providing more things related to abundance and what I'm doing for Quantum Businessman and doing DNA activations with light language. We'll see how that second segment turns out. People accept that, but if people like that, I'm willing to do more. I'll give it just one little bit of background. What I do is I do light language that, if you want it to, sends out a homing beacon for you to attract your soul family to you. And we know that when soul family comes together, you're powerful. There's so many things you can do. So who doesn't want to find more of their soul family? And the system always tries to keep us apart. So I do a light language activation for that. And yeah, I want to see how that goes. And kind of went on the edge with that, and kind of had to put my ego to the side.
Do you have that up yet?
No, that the first one should be, I'm hoping is released in the next week. Everything's being edited. Like, I just stood in front of the camera and talked for 2 hours. So now we're in the process of like editing everything down and adding all the video elements to it. So the first one will be out either next week or the week after at the very latest.
Cool. Yeah, and definitely do one for abundance, man. There are so many things people are good at specifically, even if you're not trying and you did a bit of light language, like anyone that's listening. And even if you're not trying, if your higher self is good at something and you put it into a wave modulation that has the intention of unpacking data into another person as upgrades, you will trade them substantially quite a bit more, especially if you're trying, like what we're doing with light language. Yeah, and what I'm looking for people to collaborate with. If anyone wants to do shows or interviews with, or interview me, or I interview them, if you have a YouTube channel with audience that we can get to wake more people up, it'd be wonderful to collaborate with you. And looking for.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I got excited. Go ahead.
Keep that thought. Looking for editors, looking for people that are good artists that can make cartoon versions of us, or with different facial expressions that we can use for thumbnails or something. Or if anyone knows about VTuber tech, I don't know much about it, but if I can make a version of me that I can put out more shows without having to worry about my makeup or anything. Other collaborators, people with different abilities, if you want to trade all that, and I got video products, go to PsionicLeague.com or PsionicLeague YouTube to find me, Sean Bond, name, and go to Quantum Businessman site. Can you go in?
Yeah, quantumbusinessman.com. I've got an email list on there. Sign up for the email list. I'm starting to make that a little bit more active. And if you would like to be on the show here with Sean and I, if you have something special to share, or you know of someone that might be good to be on the show with us, let us know, because we'd like to bring more people on and get their wisdom as well.
Yeah, send us a way to contact them more easily, because it's not easy to get through the flood of messages for everyone, unfortunately.
Yeah. So the next episode of Symphony of Realities will be out either next week or the week after, and then there'll be 8 of them in succession. And then what I'm going to do is at the very end put everything together into one big episode. But I'm going to release them, one at a time for the first 8.
And somebody just read in the comment, "Are you still writing your book?" There's a little hiatus on that, but we're looking for ghostwriters. So if also you want to help us with that.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well. So thank you for commenting that. Writing a book, going to Antarctica, these are still things on my bucket list. So yeah, absolutely. Anything else, Sean, before we say goodbye?
Keep bringing back the magic, making the world better. The world's games are about having fun, and sometimes they're about competition for a winner, but everyone can win in some of the games. Have an enjoyable life. Find the players who's your team and meet up with. There are a bunch of places of power that if you activate, they'll help the planet grow, and the people around them, they'll get smarter and everything will get better. We can make this world a better place, and you can have fun while doing it. Enjoy.
Exactly. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody, for watching this in real time and watching it in the future. Thank you very much. Our higher selves are all trading with each other, but both now and in the future, we'll be trading as well as you watch this in the future. So that's awesome. All right, everybody. Until next time, thank you.
Peace.